I used to have tantrums when I couldn't like beat a game.
Oh, you would
When
be
I was like a
freaking
little
the
kid.
fuck out here.
And I was like 9 or something, or like 19, whatever.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Yes. Welcome back to Is It Still Good? This is the show where we take our rose-colored glasses off. We examine the culture of our youth. We take those glasses, we seal them away in the Temple of Time for 7 goddamn years, and it's with the eyeballs that remain that we re-examine things that we liked from childhood. So today we're a couple of film students that hate growing up. I'm Bear Kennedy in Chicago. Joining me as always,
Andrew Carter, Los Angeles. Hate growing up. Can't stand it.
hate it. And
Hate it.
this is going to be a special episode today because we've brought in a guest, Mr. Adzio Czerski. Oz, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm coming to you from Orlando.
Excellent. The happiest place on earth.
It's funny because it's not.
I mean, it's better than most of California right now. So
that's actually a very good point. Yeah. How is the weather in Orlando? Is it just really hot and humid?
So fucking hot and humid. Just the absolute worst. I mean, it's like you walk outside and it's like you're stepping into a sauna. That's how bad it is.
Yeah. I haven't been to Florida in the summer in a long time, but it is probably better than...
Don't go. Just don't go.
Just don't do it. Yeah.
Just don't.
This is a large one today. So I get asked about doing this particular topic every time I bring up the show to like anybody I know. So today we are here to discuss 1998's The Legend of Zelda, the Ocarina of Time. Andrew Carter has not played this game, nor will ever play this game.
Never played it. No. And the reason Bear says I never will is just because I have no reason to now. It's just, there's just, it's not like he's saying like, I'm not going to allow him. Bear's put a cap on my credit cards. I cannot purchase.
I've limited him. I've taken the inputs out of his television so he can't hook up a Nintendo 64 to it to even attempt to play this fucking thing. So
there's a hostage. A toe was sent with nail polish. So
what color nail polish was it?
Yeah,
green.
It's green.
Was
like
it green?
Zelda.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect.
But this was a game that came out in 1998. I played it at the time and played it again over the past month on the exact same cartridge that I had from Christmas 1998 on my same Nintendo 64 that I beat it on back. I finished it in the fall of 1999. So I was 11 years old when this shit came out. Oz, what was your first experience and most recent with this game?
First experience was like you, got it Christmas 1998. I remember my brother and I were playing it. He was home from college, and like it was one of the few things that like we actually agreed on because he was a good 5 years older than me. So like we weren't like snapping at each other and fighting about stupid stuff. So yeah, we actually played on a team, like not like a he'll play the whole time kind of team. Like we actually switched off like a decent amount.
Nice.
So yeah, it was actually a really fond memory.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a really fun memory from childhood. And then I played it again probably 5 years ago. And then I played it again recently last year on the Nintendo 3DS, which is it's a handheld system. And kind of the reason why I played on that was it was re-released for that system. So you had a higher definition graphics, and that system allowed you to play certain games in 3D without any sort of apparatus on your face. So it looked like the game was literally popping out of, the iPhone size screen. So I thought that was pretty cool, and it definitely added to the replay value.
Yeah, I ran my N64 through my LED TV using the component output, and it looked like dog shit. It took a while to get used to what this thing looks like now on a modern TV, because back in the day TVs were smaller, and a standard def tube TV actually looks much better running this old shit through it than trying to pipe it into a flat screen. So I did get used to it, but I remember being blown asunder at the time by how fucking realistic and awesome graphically this was. Carter, do you remember this coming out? Did you have any experience? I mean, this was, I don't know, if people weren't alive, if they're a little younger and they don't remember this game coming out, this was a big fucking deal. This was huge. Like, and video games tend to come out, like the big titles tend to come out in November. So a lot of like my richer friends had it before Christmas, and I didn't ever get anything like toy wise outside of Christmas and my birthday. So I had to wait 6 weeks or some shit to get my hands on this. This was a big fucking deal back in 5th grade. So what was your experience tangentially from this?
So I have one really quick question. The official game is called The Legend of Zelda, the what?
The Ocarina of Time. An ocarina is like a circular recorder that makes shitty music when you blow through it.
Okay, let me ask you this question. This was the first Zelda game ever, this one?
No, this was probably oh shit, I should know this. This is either the 3rd or 4th major release.
The big draw about it was that Zelda was already a really popular franchise at this time, but it was the first really 3D kind of Zelda experience you could get.
Yeah.
And so combining those two things just blew people away.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Okay.
It really can't be overstated how crazy that was. Like, I was a huge fan of the original Legend of Zelda on
and
NES.
that one was just called The Legend of Zelda.
The Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, the Legend of Zelda.
I think that might be the one that I remember, but having said that, something about the year 1998 is sticking out in my mind with this memory of The Legend of Zelda. So I very well could have been remembering this game. I just didn't know it had the little subtitle to it. I didn't have an N64. I didn't get a video game console until I was in, I think, 5th or 6th grade. It was the original PlayStation. Because my parents were just like, there's no way we're allowing you. Like, that's just a terrible idea. Like, no. They were just like, that was just not something that they're ever going to do. I think they were like, if you work for it, you can get it. And so I like raked leaves and stuff and saved up money from them. They gave me pretty much for like a couple months. And then I got PlayStation. I remember hearing about Zelda in school, and I remember hearing kids talking about playing it and, oh, you got to come over and play Zelda or whatever, and seeing it in the background. But it was always like organized sports to me. I was never that good. And I was always just an audience member. I've always been an audience member when it comes to stuff like that. I was never a gamer because I don't know. I just didn't have it in me. The only games that I remember actually like playing on my own, getting into myself, meaning like not at some sleepover party or not hanging out with friends, was Crash Bandicoot and the Lord of the Rings games, and I think Need for Speed, Grand Theft Auto, like some kind of like they mixed in there a little bit. But again, I never beat any of them. I played them casually at best. They were just there were ones that I was like, I guess I could do that. And then I went to boarding school, and everybody, when people had a console, they would play those games. But when it comes to Zelda, I remember hearing kids talking about it in the hallway, and I just really wanted to be included. So I would talk about it and just fake knowledge, like feign, like, oh yeah, Zelda. Oh, the elf or whatever.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Got that Triforce.
Yeah, I didn't know what anything meant. But that's really my only memory of it.
Classic Zelda, am I right, guys?
Yeah,
yeah. I have no memory of it other than that in terms of playing it, or I don't know the characters' names. I just remember Zelda, and I remember, I think when the first Lord of the Rings came out, I remember thinking, oh, that looks kind of like Zelda. But that's about it. And obviously those books were way before Zelda, so Zelda might have taken a page out of that. But yeah, I don't really have much of a memory for it. So I guess my first question to you guys is, this game that you played, I guess this is more for you, Adzio, because you said you played it on a 3D Nintendo, but you can both answer this. It sounds like Bear played the exact same one from 20 years ago. So what was the experience like for you, Adzio, on this 3D system? Did it look better, or is it the same game, just, like HD, same level, same characters, or do they have like updates in it?
It was the exact same game, except it was high definition, so it's HD. And so if you go and look at older original screenshots of it, it doesn't look great when you compare it to a video game of today. But like they, higher resolution, higher pixels for all the characters, so they look more advanced. And the gameplay was different because the actual system is shaped differently than the original controllers, so that took a little bit of getting used to. But other than that, it was the exact same game, same levels, same characters, same everything.
Wow. So it's just like that, but with like a squeegee over it. It just looks a little better.
Yeah. And I think that's a really big trend now, just because it's easier to throw an older game that was popular back then, on a newer console and charge like $10 for it or whatever it is, than to develop a whole new game. There's a big nostalgia factor involved there. And, if you can play an old game that you loved from 20 years ago on your brand new system and it looks better, then it just seems like a why not kind of decision.
Yeah, that's not unheard of, Carter, too. That's often referred to as like a high definition port, or it's been ported to a new system or whatever. And that's good news for people who maybe are younger and have heard about games. Like, you would hear about this one if you were a kid right now. If you were born, in like 2005 or something, you're like in high school. If you're a gamer, you're going to know about this one. You're going to know about some other stuff. And if you don't have a family member who's me, and I happen to have kept all my old shit, you'd have essentially no way to get your hands on something old other than to play an updated port of it. So I'm largely in favor of
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games.
Yeah, that's coming out. Yeah, that's coming out this year.
Yeah.
Dude,
that was actually, I can't believe I forgot to mention those. Those were like the biggest ones to me.
Yes,
I'm shocked that I didn't mention those. Those were probably the ones that were in the most heavy rotation.
Idiot.
Yeah, we could probably get an episode on that pretty easily, because I haven't revisited those in a long time, and the new ones are intriguing. But I played
soundtrack, man, iconic.
It was such a great soundtrack. Yeah,
so good.
I replayed Final Fantasy IX on the Switch last year. It was like $10. I mean, like you said, Oz, it's genius. $10, yeah, I'm gonna fucking play that. I easily put 50 hours into that and loved it, and I haven't played that game since 2002. So it is fun to revisit that. I could do hours on Final Fantasy IX, so I'll shut the fuck up. But it's nice to be able to have that option now.
And a lot of the older games, like pre N64, so we're talking about like Super Nintendo, Atari era games, are now available on your smartphone too. So you can get the first 5 Final Fantasy games on your smartphone really easily. It's kind of the same thing. It's kind of like a why not decision. It's the exact same experience. I think the same graphics, more or less. And the actual game size are so small that it makes a lot of sense just to throw it onto an iPhone or an Android phone and just carry it around with you, because they're still good, solid games. It's just that the visual experience is a little different.
Yeah, I have Chrono Trigger on my phone right now, and it looks great. But that, as a kid, if you were to tell me as a kid that I would have the ability to have Chrono Trigger in my fucking pocket, and it looked
no way
as good as the Super Nintendo, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. Like, the future is going to be great. There's never going to be a virus or a person I hate in the White House. Like, it could only be great if this is what you're fucking telling me.
I was going to ask, this was the first version of Zelda, The Legend of Zelda, just that one. Was that released on Super Nintendo?
NES.
Nintendo. Yeah, the original Nintendo. Yeah.
So then, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like this Zelda, the fucking Arkham of I'm sorry, I'm never going to remember it. it sounds like it came out with the release of N64. Is that right?
No,
Yeah.
it was 2 years
Was-
later. N64 came out in 96 ish.
Oh, I thought it was 98.
No, 98. The launch titles for 64 were probably Super Mario 64, and I think GoldenEye was pretty soon.
Yeah, GoldenEye,
after
I
that.
remember, but I thought fucking.
No, this was a
96.
this was hotly anticipated. And again, like
Okay.
the jump at the time from 2D graphics, especially in like a beloved game already, a franchise like Legend of Zelda that had a couple entries that were already considered very good, if not the best available, versions of a great video game. Going from 2D to 3D graphics wise was like, it was unbelievable. I remember seeing, Super Mario 64 and being just, my brain was fucking ruined. I was like, there's no fucking way. Like, it was just not what you were used to coming from like the 8 and 16-bit world. It was unbelievable.
It's really hard to describe how big the jump was when, the last 20 years has been nothing but 3D games. I mean, it's like, I can't even like emphasize how big it was. Cause I mean, there are a few like attempts at like semi 3D levels. I think like Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic 3D Blast had a like fake
something
3D.
like it. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it didn't look great. But then when they started showing the actual in-game footage of like Mario 64, it was mind blowing. It's like kind of like seeing the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park for the first time. Like technology can do this. Like that's so crazy.
That's a really good comparison. I don't think there's anything really like that now. I mean, things get better. Things look better. They perform at a higher speed. There's more detail, but you're not going from.
You don't notice it.
Yeah, it's not like going from like a flat cartoon to like an immersion in a world, and that was just nuts. Like it was just
what I've seen of today in video games, and again, I don't think I've sat down and held like a controller and actually played something in probably over a decade.
It's been like 90 minutes over here for me.
Maybe even like 15 years, honestly. But from what I can tell, it just looks like virtual reality stuff. That's what it looks like to me. It feels like there hasn't been much of an advancement in terms of what you're talking about, like a really mind-blowing 2D to 3D type thing in a long, long time, which doesn't mean that they look bad. It just means that there hasn't been that type of awe-inspiring factor.
Yeah. That's incredibly fair, just because it's the amount of data that you see in like a character or whatever. It's so much that you have to like zoom in or get a huge TV to really appreciate it. It's like just from PlayStation 2 to PlayStation 3, like that jump wasn't really that big. And so that's kind of the big thing that everybody's talking about now, because the new Xbox and new PlayStation are coming out this December. And everyone's kind of like, well, is it really worth paying anywhere from $300 to $600 when the way, like the most you're going to be able to appreciate it is you have to also buy a $500 4K TV on top of that if you don't already have one.
I was just going to say, it actually sounds a little similar to from like the jump from 1080p HD to 4K.
That's true. Yeah. And I saw that Collateral is coming out in like an ultra 4K Blu-ray. Collateral was shot if maybe 2K resolution. It was definitely 1080p.
Yeah, I have that movie on Blu-ray and it looks fantastic. And I don't see. It's funny because we got a 4K TV about 2 years, almost 2 years ago, with the 4K Blu-ray player. Just because we had an older TV and I had a PS3 that I just never used, and because it played Blu-rays, and I was like, I might as well upgrade. And then I started looking at 4K stuff, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. And the first movie I bought on 4K Blu-ray was Mission Impossible Fallout, and it looks fucking awesome. So depending on the transfer, depending on the movie, I'm all for 4K transfers. Having said that, it really just depends on not only your love of the film that you're buying. If it's a catalog title, like my favorite movie of all time is Casino, and I got that on 4K and it looks incredible. But then I read a review that Goodfellas on 4K doesn't look good, so I skipped that one. And I have the Blu-ray, and it looks great. So in terms of being able to really tell the difference, it's pretty hard to.
Yeah, you're just getting into subjectivity of like what you think is worth the purchase, because actually
that's really what it is.
Because 35 millimeter is rated at about 2K. If you transfer pixel depth from the film to a digital process, it's like 2K, which is about 1080p. It's like just a little more.
Right.
So if you're not shooting things,
sorry, go ahead.
You're never going to get better than your master. So if you're not shooting something on 70 or on IMAX, and then you're selling a 4K transfer of it, your original isn't at that resolution.
Right.
You know, maybe the compression's better, maybe there's less artifacting, maybe you just like how it looks, and that's fine. But if you're looking at building up a 4K collection of movies, at a certain point, that's going to come down to your preference for wanting to,
that's
maybe
really
seeing
what
something
it is.
you like presented in a different way.
Yeah, no, that's what it is.
You're beyond what it was actually shot on.
Yeah, and it's funny, like sometimes, like I just got the Dark Knight trilogy on 4K, and it looks like hypnotic.
But parts of that were shot in IMAX, right?
Yeah, parts that were shot in IMAX. And sorry, Adzio, what'd you say?
No, I was just saying parts of it were specifically shot on IMAX, so it looks
the second two, not Batman Begins, the second two, and they all look incredible on 4K. But then it's like, it's again, it's your preference, and some movies just aren't necessarily worth that extra $5 or $10, whatever it might be.
I agree, and it goes the other way. Actually, me and Oz saw Dunkirk in IMAX together in Orlando. And I saw it on 70 as well, and I have no desire to watch that movie like streaming. No, thank you. Like, it's not. No, thank you. It is not going to be anywhere near those two experiences. That was an unbelievably immersive.
Yeah,
level.
I saw that I just saw it on 35, and it was still extremely immersive. Have you guys seen Tenet yet?
No, I haven't seen Tenet yet.
It's playing here, but I don't know if I want to go to a theater yet.
I saw it. If you want me to share my opinion, I will. But if you want me to hold it, I'll hold it.
I want you to share your opinion.
Do you?
I heard it has the worst audio mix that anyone has ever heard in a film.
I heard it was more or less mixed. Like, it's a good Christopher Nolan film, but like it's not really his best work.
I personally fucking hated it. Like,
awesome.
Absolutely hated it.
Great.
Like I was surprised by how much I didn't like it. And it's a shame because I think John David Washington is a great actor, and I just think he doesn't have enough to do here. I think Robert Pattinson's great, and they play off each other great, but again, it's just not enough. I thought the movie was really pretentious and convoluted, and also almost reveled in the fact that it was so convoluted, which just made it more pretentious. And I just... Granted, I did see it at a drive-in, and the screen, it didn't look very good, and you know, it was, but it, you know, you still could see what was happening. I'm not going to chalk it up to like, oh, the experience was bad, so I'll rewatch it. It was very hard to follow, and I feel like Nolan has had this criticism before, but for some reason his movies do bring it home for me emotionally in a lot of ways. But this one just had no heart to it. It just, at least in my opinion, there was nothing about it that you didn't understand what John David Washington's motivation was, whatever. But like in a movie like Inception, which I know gets a bad rap, not a bad rap, but a lot of people like to say that it's, you know, overrated and again, a little cold, but like you care about DiCaprio and his journey. And he's like, I have to get home to my family. And that is like the heart of the movie. And same with Interstellar, you know, and this one just doesn't have that. And at least in, again, my opinion. And I don't know. I really, really just did not like it at all. I'm curious to see what you guys think when you see it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Usually, if I like something or Oz likes something, the other one of us will hate it. So that's like,
oh, interesting.
It's like clockwork. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You and I don't have that, Carter, but usually Oz or I will pick a side without knowing, and the other one will.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like if it's rare enough where we'll actually both enjoy a movie, then we're just like, oh, well, that means it's probably this really amazing movie.
Or it's like in the middle. I don't trust it if we both like it.
Yeah.
With Tenet, it was like, it wasn't just that this was my least favorite Christopher Nolan movie, and it was like a rare miss for him, which it is. It was like a colossal miss. At least
I make you
again,
want to see it more. I
in
mean,
my
that's
opinion,
selling
I
it.
was just I
you're
couldn't
selling
believe
it
how
really
much
well, actually.
I couldn't believe how much I didn't like it. I was watching it with my friend in the car, and after like about hour and a half, and it's a 2.5 hour movie. It's a long fucking movie. It's too long.
Oh.
And after about an hour and a half, I turned to him and asked him a question. And was like, "So is that character that?" And because I just didn't know if I was crazy, and he's like, "Dude, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I have no idea." And we both just burst out laughing. We're like, "What is this?" And then we just like shit talked the movie for the last 30 minutes or so, which was actually very fun. But it was, I mean, look, yeah, visually, it's of course it's dazzling. It looks great. That's par for the course with Nolan. I mean, if you go to his movie, if you go to one of his movies and you're like, it didn't look good, that's never, that's not ever going to be an issue.
Even when he's shooting on like, whatever, 35 or not even 35, 16 millimeter black and white, he still looks amazing.
Yeah,
So.
his stuff looks great. But before we get back to video games, or as we get back to video games, I have a question for Bear. How did you keep up your console for 20 years? How did you, what was the upkeep like?
Well, I take care of my things, Carter. I don't know if you're familiar with that concept.
I'm
a
neat freak, dude. I am.
I think calling me a hoarder is unwarranted. I don't think I'm a hoarder, but I do tend to take good care of things and not get rid of stuff if I can at all avoid it. So I left my N64 at my parents' house when I went to college. And they just, they never really went through my shit and did like the yard sale that tends to happen to people. So, I'm not shocked it still works. Like I do play it, not all the time, but decently often. I have a working Sega Genesis from 1994 with all my games for that. I have like a decent collection of older games and consoles and stuff. Not that it's amazing or anything to brag about, but the thing I was actually a little bit surprised about was that the battery inside the cartridge, there's a little battery in there within the old cartridges that powers the flash memory to save your game. And they're rated for, I think, like 15 years. Like they're not rated for that long. And at this point, we're pushing 22 on that Legend of Zelda cartridge. So I thought it might not save my game, which I was a little worried about. I knew I could just leave it on and pause it and it would probably be all right. I wasn't that worried about it overheating, but that thing never failed me. Still holds a save. So some of the older like NES and Super Nintendo games should lose that charge, especially now. I'd be a little surprised if some of that stuff still worked. But that's the only thing I was surprised about. Yeah, I keep my stuff in good working order, fired up every once in a while. The N64 doesn't have any moving parts. The thing you're mostly worried about with old computer equipment is the spinning hard drive failing on you, which gets to be more and more of a crapshoot as things get older. But like I said, those don't even really have anything just beyond RAM in them. I mean, someone can call me out, but I'm pretty sure that the cartridges just have a little flash in there for the storage. So all that stuff, if properly powered and not overheated and not sold by your parents on the street, should hold up just fine.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely Ataris and original Nintendo systems that work better than Xbox 360s or Xbox Ones, just because, I mean, they were, the state of the art at the time, but like nothing moved. So unless you dropped it or poured water on it or it, shorted out or, got overheated, it's probably fine.
Exactly. I've got a working Super Nintendo. I've got a PlayStation 2 that is a little janky, but has been for a long time. Because if you used your PlayStation 2 to play DVDs, which I did a lot, DVDs weigh slightly more than CDRs. So you have to weigh your CDRs down to play them by putting tape on them. So I can play PlayStation 1 games, but I have to tape a certain pattern on them so the thing will spin. But
Jesus, what a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I'm a big nerd. Yeah, it is a big pain in the ass, but it's fun to have all this shit.
I think it's awesome that you hold on to that shit. I'm a dude. I mean, that's my fucking. It's funny that you say that because I remember like looking back. I think I got into video games pretty much to fit in, because all I used my PS2 and PS3 for was to play movies.
That's hilarious.
Like,
I don't have a Dreamcast, which I would love to get. I'd love to get my hands on a Jaguar and a Sega Saturn. And I know you can just buy this shit on eBay, but you know, I try to. That's like cheating. I like to find them at Disc Replay or whatever.
Yeah. Well, no,
That's
I remember the Jaguar when it first came out in like the mid '90s. It cost like $600 in the mid '90s.
The controller has like 7,000 buttons on it too. It's awesome.
Yeah,
I don't think I've never even heard of the Jaguar.
Yeah, it wasn't very popular because it was so expensive. Like accounting for inflation, that's like $2,000 for a thing that plays like 70 games. So it's
and most of them are bad. Yeah. The only thing I wanted for was to play Aliens versus Predator.
Yeah.
So Zelda, let me ask you guys this: how long did it take you to beat it as kids versus now?
Well, I was lied to, so I'd like to address.
Sorry about that
on the show. So Oz and I were texting, and I don't even remember. He was like, I think you might have texted me first. Like, oh, I played Zelda on 3DS. It was awesome. I was like, all right, how long did that take? And he's like, 10 hours max. And I get to like the 12-hour mark, and I text him, you piece of shit. Like, I'm not even halfway done, and I'm at 12 hours. And I had to keep track like manually because the game, if it does have a counter, I couldn't find it.
I don't think it has one.
I don't think it does. Like a lot of games now will have just a timer to give you
tell you how big of a piece of shit you are. Like,
yeah, like when I logged 105 hours over quarantine and Death Stranding. Yeah, it's like, oh, there's a solid couple days of my life. So it was rated. I looked it up because I was so mad. Like,
and it was
fucked it up that bad.
Completely my fault. Before we reveal the actual. It had been like well over a year the last time I played it, and like I'd play because like it's on a portable system, so you can like walk around anywhere in your house, whatever, the bus, and just play it for like an hour at a time. So like it doesn't seem like that long. So I said, oh, like 10 or 12 hours, pulling it out of thin air, not even really thinking about it. And then when you looked it up, it was what?
It was rated at 30 and a half, and I finished out at almost 34, just under 34. And I didn't do everything you could do. That's just like the main story and like parts of side quests that I kind of pursued and then gave up on. Because the other part of this is I didn't use any help at all. I didn't look up anything. I didn't look at any strategy guides. When I got stuck, I just had to deal with it, which happened actually quite a bit. So I was just under 34. What was your actual time, Oz?
Oh,
if not 10 hours.
Oh, I have no idea what it is. I will never know. It's a mystery lost to time. But I will say in my defense that playing it again, it seemed like it was a lot quicker just because like it had made such a huge impression on me as a kid that like I knew like 80% exactly what to do already. So like there wasn't any like screwing around like, oh, like do I go into this infinite hallway or like do I turn left here? Like I knew like I had to place the bomb here. I had to like throw the boomerang at this guy to get whatever. So yeah, but I completely my fault. I just completely didn't even think about.
And I remembered a decent amount of shit, but what was weird, I've picked this game up a couple times in the past 20 years or so, like earnestly meaning to give it a replay. I never got more than a couple hours in. So I have not beaten this game since I was 11 years old. And so my memory of stuff was sometimes very good, but often not as specific as I would have liked. So I could remember some of the secrets, some of the stuff I knew you had to do. And then, you know, like you and I both still play video games. So your sense of how a game is going to go is much better now than it was at the time. You kind of know like what they're trying to get you to do. There were a couple times here where I got like unbelievably brutally stuck.
Yeah, if there's a portion of the wall that's like way lighter colored than the rest. I remember as a kid, I was like, I remember as a kid thinking like, oh, these idiots, they made a huge mistake. And now I'm like, oh no, this is definitely where I have to go now.
Yeah. So as a kid, I got it. I know I got it on Christmas. Like a bunch of my friends got it. My cousins got it. They were playing the shit out of it. at Christmas because we always used to spend Christmas in Ohio. So I got the game and then had to watch my cousins play it on their game before I could even fucking start it, which was awful.
That sucks. Were your cousins older than you?
Yeah, I'm the youngest cousin, so everyone's older.
There you go.
Which I always find watching people play video games extremely frustrating. I don't understand the whole video game streamer subculture.
We touched on this on the show. That is unimaginably boring.
That's why I don't. That's why I'm. I mean, first of all, it's not really like a passion or interest of mine, but that was a lot of my childhood. Was just like, not a lot of it, but like when someone would ever be like, "Oh, let's play video games," I would just always watch because I wasn't good, and I wanted to fucking kill myself. It was so fucking boring.
It's very boring, and so like when I was a kid, like this game is very hard, I will say. And playing it on the N64, I'm guessing on the 3DS you can kind of save wherever and pick it back up.
Yeah.
Like on the N64, if you save, it puts you either back to the beginning of the dungeon or back at one of your two homes. So you lose progress. So like you die, you're back to the beginning of the dungeon. Like you got to fight through the entire dungeon to get back to the point where you died.
And it takes away some of your health too as a punishment.
Yes. And it is really tough. And as a kid, I think this game had me come up with kind of my lifelong rule of, I don't want to use a strategy guide. I don't want to look anything up. I don't want to go on gamefaqs.com and like get a hint unless I'm so stuck to the point where I'm just miserable, like absolutely not having fun. And then I'll do it. And I remember as a kid, you talk to other kids playing the game or you just get stuck and I would look stuff up occasionally. And that's why in this playthrough, I just committed, I'm not looking up shit. Like if it's hard, I'm just going to be stuck with it. And this game is fucking hard.
It's designed to be challenging, and there's no easy, medium, hard setting. No. And this was before, I mean, it's not before the internet, but it was before a lot of internet sites. So you could go to the video game store.
FAQs for sure was up during this. That was my go-to. Yeah, for sure.
I was going to ask, were you able to get cheat codes and stuff like that, or was that even a thing here?
I don't remember codes for this.
And there wasn't for this, but like if it was a big enough game, you could get an official guide.
Yes, by like Primo or whatever.
Yeah, or or Nintendo would sell it itself as like an extra, like a deluxe version. You'd get both in the same purchase. And then Nintendo itself had a 900 hotline, which charged you by the minute to ask questions. Yep. So there was a person whose job it was to talk to little kids about how to solve different puzzles in games. And so like that's like was their actual job. And I don't think that exists.
Hell of a job.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. But like imagine all the bratty little kids you'd have to talk to that are
awful.
Yeah, that would be.
And I remember like I was playing this game. I was playing it all year through the summer. And I remember like end of the summer, I'd gotten the way I played it originally. I played like the Spirit Temple was one of like the last temples I got to, and I remember like email was kind of new, so I like emailed my cousin. I was like, "Yo, like, where you guys at in Zelda?" I got to the Spirit Temple, and
what was your email address as a kid? Do you remember?
Oh Christ, I don't remember. This would have been AOL. I don't know.
It's like
my first one was
Rad Skater 420.
I don't think it was that. It was probably just like my mom's name or something.
My first one was chilipepper233 at AOL.com.
I knew my aim was Country Mike 4, which is a really deep Beastie Boys reference. But
mine was Toit56, like Toit like a Toiger from Austin Parish 3. Ever heard of it?
My cousin emails me back and goes, "Yo, Mike, me and my bro beat it." And I was like the most devastated I've ever been as a kid. Just despondent, like motherfucker. Like they're so far ahead of me. Like they already got the ending and I'm just fucking around in the Spirit Temple like an idiot. So that was harsh, but
I'm a loser.
Yeah. And I know I finished it before the next Christmas. So I probably finished it in like October or so, but I sent Oz a screen shot where whoever I was talking to said like, and you put in your name as the character. So I put in Bear. So every time the main character's name comes up, it's Bear. And the screenshot I sent him was it's Bear, the hero of time. And I was pretty stoned when I went through a lot of weed when I was playing this also. And I texted him that screenshot, and he texted back and ruined my day. He said, "You literally are the hero of time. You were doing this exact thing 21 years ago when you were playing it on this day in 1999." And I was like, holy shit, he's right.
It's true.
It was super true. It was so fucking weird.
So,
And side note, when I repurchased the game and system like 5 or 6 years ago, it came with an already saved game on there. So you can either choose to like delete it or, start your own, or like so I just started to see where the other person was, and I was playing around a little bit, and then I got to a point where a character was talking with me, and the character's name was Poop. So I was like, this person, I laughed for 5 minutes straight at how dumb this joke was. But then I was like, oh, this guy just set off the perfect time bomb, because it was just a classic joke.
That's awesome.
His name was Poop, and then he knew he was going to sell it, and he's like, I'm not deleting this.
It comes up a lot,
great.
too.
This is a little present.
It comes up a lot.
I wish you could. Did you wish you could find that seller and just be like, "Hey, good one, LOL."
Oh no, there's no record of that. It's not like a car or a house.
Yeah, there's no video game identification number.
No, I mean.
Wait, so Bear, you said it took 34 hours total.
Just under.
Spread out over how long?
About a month.
Okay.
Which
So
that's actually.
It sounds like it took you 10 months as a kid.
Yeah, it at least took 10 months as a kid.
Was it every day though? Was it every day for 10 months?
It was pretty regular, and like I said, it's a very hard game. I told one of my friends here that we were doing it, and he was like, "That's the hardest game of all time." Why
did they make it for kids?
I suspect a lot of kids our age did not finish it, and I was looking back through old reviews, and at the time, game journalism wasn't super elaborate, kind of like it is now. So a lot of these reviews are very short. And I actually had a GamePro subscription for like 15 years that I had in my childhood bedroom. My parents did get rid of all those GamePros. But even in their little like 3 to 5 like sentence review, they said it's so hard that casual gamers might give up rather quickly. And that's super accurate. It's fucking
I would have
tough.
given up after like one day. I used to have tantrums when I couldn't like beat a game.
Oh, you would be
like
freaking the fuck out here.
And I was like 9 or something, or like 19, whatever. But like,
as this game progresses, you start as a kid. You start as the boy without a fairy, and you go through some shit as a child. Playing on the N64, like the first hour was basically me just getting used to the control scheme, which is very, very hard on the 64 if you're used to like PlayStation. It's extremely difficult. It's not what you expect in terms of like camera and just movement. So that's really tough to get used to. That's harder to get used to, I think, than the visuals. Because the visuals just look dated. But dealing with the targeting with Navi, your fairy, and just trying to navigate fluidly, I found to be a hard 60 to 90 minutes to adjust to. I don't know if that's like that on the 3DS, but it's tough.
No, that was definitely the same. Well, plus the N64 controller is shaped differently than modern controllers.
Than
like
anything,
they've all kind of gone to the same basic design.
That controller is iconic.
It's iconic, but it sucks. Now, I mean, if you're used to, there's a reason. Like the Xbox and PlayStation controllers are basically fucking similar. Even the Switch one is basically the same.
The PlayStation ones are always the most comfortable for me.
But, the best.
Yeah, but everyone knows that one. The N64 one. But like, oh god, I had a question about was there ever any thought in either of your heads, whether it was you as a child or you now, that was just I'm not gonna beat this, or was it always like, no, I'm gonna play this till I beat it? Like that was always gonna happen.
Never an option to not beat it.
Yeah, no, it definitely was an option for me because
that was such an unexpected answer. I thought you were agreeing with Bear, then you're like, oh yeah, no, I definitely almost gave up.
No, because the thing about it was, I think the thing about it was more that it was my brother and I that were doing it. And so when, Christmas vacation ended, he went back to college. He's like, all right, well, what the hell do I do now? Like I tried to pick it back up, and I didn't get very far in it just because it wasn't as fun, because it was a shared experience with him and I. And then he actually, the next Christmas, he's like, hey, did you ever finish Zelda? I was like, no. He's like, all right, well, do you want to start it back up? And so we spent like another week of that Christmas, like 6 hours a day doing nothing else.
That is awesome. I would do that now. Oh my God, that sounds good.
Yeah.
That's great. Did you tell your brother that you're doing this presently? Like, oh, I just played this game.
No, he wouldn't give a shit. He's so far beyond that kind of thing now. Like,
he's not arrested in his development like we are. Like,
oh no,
I actually got him on the phone. I put him on speakerphone so he can call me a fucking idiot.
No, there's a really big age gap between him and I. So like 5 years, like when you're a kid, is huge.
That is huge.
Yeah, we were never really on the same page, and like that kind of stuck now. So I don't like Bear's actually met him, and he's not. He's not a terrible person or anything like that.
No, he's much older than me. He's like, he's like in full dad mode,
Oh yeah, no, he has 2 kids.
Yeah.
He has a mortgage. Like,
he's a nice guy. He's just like an adult, whereas I'm kind of desperately holding on to not having responsibility.
Well, plus his wife does get rid of all of his like childish stuff, and like, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But
that was such a serious lull. Like, but anyway, it's so funny to me how that's a lot of what the show's about, though, is like men in general are just like think about what you just said, like Oz, that you're just like, oh, his wife gets rid of a lot of his stuff. Like, we all just reacted to that like it was the apocalypse. Like, oh God, he's going through that. Oh boy. Like,
oh no, he's been through that. It's like not even like if he does stuff, he doesn't tell anybody. Like, I suspect he does stuff like at work or like on the trip to work, where like it's just his thing. He doesn't tell anybody. He doesn't tell me. He'll take that stuff to the grave, and he'll have like a whole bunch of like video games on his phone that no one ever knew about, like something like that.
Wow,
good stuff.
You gotta have that, though. You gotta have your stuff.
I'm in a room just filled with random bullshit that I'll just
plus the thing is, he works in finance, and so like there's a huge expectation to fit into the culture, and so like playing video games for 6 hours a day, on Wall Street isn't really a big part of the finance culture. And so I think that's
he walks in, he's like, yo, Tommy, you want to Zelda it up this weekend? The guy's like, what? He's like, Bears Bulls.
Well, I looked at I wrote down, like, I timed myself and I wrote down like the times as I was playing it, and I fired this up a couple times, being like, all right, I have a half hour, let me just try to figure some shit out. And there's multiple times where that turned into like a solid 2 to 3 hours of me being in this shit. Just being like, I need to figure out this temple. I must get to the next thing. Like, I just got pulled into this in such a big way, which usually, like, I do play a lot of video games. Like, you were asking me, how long did 34 hours take? A month to get through 34 hours is actually kind of slow for me. This is like the N6
that's like a max of an hour a day almost. Like, what were you doing?
Well, it's on my N64, which you forget, like, the cords to the old systems are very short. So it's set up in my office, like, right there. So if I'm like gonna play video games late into the night, I play my PS4 a lot, which is hooked up in the living room. So I was doing that at the same time as playing this. So it's a little prohibitive to have it be on an old system that's in a different room of the house. 33 to 34 hours is actually very, very quick, especially for like an RPG like this. As a kid, it was like very long. I didn't really have a good sense of time.
Oh, no way.
At least for a game as a kid. And that's why when you told me 10 hours, I kind of believed you. I mean, I was like, that seemed a little short, but I was a kid. Maybe I was having a hard time with it, and it's not that hard. It's fucking hard, and it takes a while, and there's a lot of shit to do.
It's felt faster this time around, just because like there wasn't a lot of trying to figure stuff out. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely a couple of areas where a couple of like dungeons and levels where I was like, where do I go? Like, what the hell do I do? I don't remember this at all.
It's some of the shit, like when you're a kid, you in the game card, like you start out as a kid and then you do some shit as a kid. You're trying to essentially stop Ganondorf, who's the bad guy, from getting his hands on this power called the Triforce, which would allow him to remake the world however he wants. And since he's evil, he's going to make the world hell. So as a kid, you hook up with Zelda, who's a princess. She's kind of like the royal family in these games, usually plugged into like keeping the Triforce. So it gives you like a lowdown, like, hey, this is what's going on. Like, there's some shit happening. Can you find some stones or whatever? Then you do that, and you go and you find the Master Sword, which there's like all of these games have very common elements. A lot of them are just retelling the same story, and that's basically the case with this one.
So it's not necessarily a sequel, but it's like it's a remake. Yeah.
Okay.
Essentially. So you find that Master Sword, you pull it out of the stone, and unbeknownst to you, this locks you into the Temple of Time where you advance 7 years while your soul is captive. So you come out a man. So there's this interesting time travel element. All of a sudden you're like a full-grown, full-dicked boy. You probably go from like, I don't know, 10 to 17 or so. So there's a time travel element, and the kid stuff I didn't have a problem with. I kind of remembered what to do. I didn't think it was that hard. As soon as you become a man, shit gets amped up
so
quickly.
Weird. Yeah.
Holy shit, it's hard. Like,
so what's the difference? Like, what happens versus what happens as a man that doesn't happen as a kid?
You show up 7 years later and the world sucks. Like you accidentally unlock this portal that lets the bad guy in. He kind of lets you do his work, kind of like Indiana Jones.
So it's a metaphor for adulthood.
Yeah,
like
so you show up,
adulthood.
The world fucking sucks. Everyone's like, yeah, things fucking suck. This guy's in charge. Everything's terrible.
Well, in the game, like the challenges are much higher. The enemies are stronger. They do more damage. They're it's just less forgiving.
Way less forgiving. The puzzles and the temples are much more difficult to figure out. And Oz even said like, oh, it's not that bad. You just push a block or whatever. It's not that bad. It's not like unfair, the difficulty level. And basically what you get, eventually you get like a map of every dungeon, and the best strategy is just to go into every room you haven't been. Eventually that will get you through the dungeon. But some of the dungeons unfold in a very complicated way. You have to backtrack a lot or change things. The water temple in this game is kind of famous for having to really, it's very, very hard. And you have to like constantly be adjusting the water level so you can swim to different areas. And then you put on these steel-toed boots so you sink, so you can walk around, and there's a lot of switching in and out of that. So it
sounds like a pain. What's fun about it?
It's very satisfying when you get through it. It's like a Rubik's Cube in that you're constantly kind of working through this puzzle, and everything eventually kind of snaps into place. Like as you go through and figure it out, you get the items. You're like, oh fuck, I needed this thing to get over there. I needed this key. I found it. Like you get through these things not necessarily linearly, but in a way that's really satisfying when you do it. And that element of the gameplay here holds up unbelievably well. I think it's fucking nuts how well that holds up.
And then sometimes you can go back when you get like new items, you can go back to the older places, and then there's more stuff you can do and like upgrades you can get and all that kind of stuff. So
and you have to go back in time at certain points. You can only do certain things as a kid. So you have to go back in time to do stuff as a kid and then come back as an adult and deal with that.
So like an example would be like you go to this one area, you plant a little seed, and then you go forward in time, and then the seed sprouts, and like you climb up the beanstalk or whatever.
Yeah, or like there's some items like you have to get as a child because the world changes for the worse in 7 years. Like some stuff has changed. You got to get some shit as a kid, so you have it as an adult, so you can advance.
So you get prepared.
Yeah.
I mean, this game literally sounds like a metaphor for like growing up and telling kids to be prepared.
For sure that, I mean, the main character doesn't talk. He's a silent protagonist. You put your name in as him. He's kind of designed for you to put yourself into him. His real name is Link. And Link is,
I remember Link. Yeah, I remember that name.
Link is the protagonist, and he's kind of just a blank slate for you to experience this adventure. So it's very engrossing in that way too. Especially you put your name in, everyone talks to you like, oh, you're Bear, you're the fucking hero of time. We're so glad you're here. So that's very immersive. The titular Ocarina of Time shows up. You do have to use the ocarina to play songs. I remembered a couple of the songs actually. You do it by pressing buttons. And then I don't know why, but every time I play a song, I play it as out of rhythm as possible. Like, do you do that too? Like, it has like a rhythm, like it's like 6 buttons, and I do it like super fast. Or I do like 3 fast and like the other 3 really slow, and it tells you, oh, you played Zelda's Lullaby or whatever.
Yeah, and that was a really cool game feature that no one had ever really seen before.
Yeah,
it's kind of like Guitar Hero, except it wasn't timed.
Yeah.
So you could do you could do it as fast or slow as you wanted. But then the thing was like you had to remember all of the songs. So there's like
it does keep it for you, but the fucking owl tells you, oh, you're gonna have to memorize all these songs. And I was like, motherfucker. Like, I remember playing the old Zeldas and getting graph paper and drawing out the dungeons. Because if you had graph paper with like little squares, you could actually draw the screens to figure your way out, which was a big help in the old games, which are brutally hard as well. So I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to like write down these fucking songs or something. Side note, fuck that owl. I hate that fucking owl.
I don't understand. He has no purpose. He comes in, he tells you like 3 things, and then you never
ask you if you want to hear it again. The answer is always no. Like, absolutely not. I don't want to go through this long text thread. So
I think it was just something that somebody just threw in there, and then it was too hard to take out. So they're like, all right, well, it's in here now.
Yeah. But you actually have a decent amount of, at least when you become an adult, you have a decent amount of leeway with how you can experience the story. So like, for example, there's like, I think there's 7 dungeons, 7 sages, 7 dungeons.
Like that,
or there's 6 dungeons. You get 1 automatically for being an adult. And you can kind of do them in any order you want. So I don't know why, but there were certain things that I just fucked up, and I did like the dumbest order you could do. Like, I couldn't, like, you become an adult, Navi, your fairy, tells you like, oh, let's go to Death Mountain. Like, there's some shit going on up there. I couldn't for the fucking life of me figure out how to get to the fire temple. Like, just straight up couldn't figure it out. So I did like the water temple first. I did the fire temple last. And the fire temple is pretty easy. The water temple is unbelievably hard. Spirit temple is very involved. And then I think you have to do the shadow temple last, which is the end of that is super hard. So I did that in the stupidest order possible. And then I didn't get the horse till like almost the end of the game because I couldn't figure out how to get the horse. Like, you go to the ranch, you ride the horse. I remember the horse jumping over a fence to like free the horse, Epona or whatever. But I couldn't figure out how to do that. And you have to be on the horse and then talk to Inga. And seriously, I didn't get the horse to like the last temple.
That was one of the first things that I did, just because
all I wanted was a fucking horse. I was so pissed. And I refused to look it up because I made that promise. I'm not going to look this shit up. But I probably burned, 2 to 3 hours just fucking up, not being able to figure out. I had to stop that Goron with a bomb for him to tell me about the fire temple. And then I had to figure out to talk to this fucking guy while I'm on the horse to get the fucking horse. And then the other thing that I just did a million times was every time you get on the horse, it takes like a second, like a 1/1000 count for the A button to flip from get off the horse to faster. So I get on the horse, I hit A, he immediately gets off the horse. I just like when I was like really high, I got like in a loop where Link just got on and off the horse for like a really long time.
I was going to ask, did getting high, do you feel like it made it more fun and easier, or was it just, did it make it, I mean, it sounds like that made it fucking harder.
Overall, it's more difficult because the game's already kind of hard.
Right.
I do recommend that, but it is, it's tough. It's a big open world game. It's not that big compared to standards now.
Red Dead Redemption 2.
I know. I was just thinking. I played that earlier this year. I finished it, and that the world in Red Dead 2 is unbelievably huge.
It's like-
Hyrule
no,
is
it's like-
minuscule compared to that.
I don't know how these developers do it. They literally just create worlds. It's
Yeah,
I don't
nuts.
fucking
nuts.
But overall, I mean, I know we're kind of getting to being able to wrap it up here, but like I said, I took an absolute shitload of notes because there's so much stuff in this game. But overall, I mean, my impressions of it were that it is from a different time. So the luster of this game being like this huge step forward to, like, you know, classic titles that we love being presented in 3D. That's worn off a lot. The story of this game is very bare bones. The story didn't hold up for me almost at all. Whereas when I was a kid, I remember being much more emotional and much more of a gut punch to finish it. And I did not feel that this time. However, the gameplay holds up better than I could have ever imagined. And this is from a time when the gameplay told the story more than the story. Like I said, I played Death Stranding, which I thought was awesome, which is a really weird game. But that is more of a game where you play the game to get to the next cutscene where the story takes place. So you've got a series of cutscenes that are very cinematic, but the game itself is almost kind of removed from that at points. Whereas with this, you don't have a lot of cutscenes. You're in this adventure as the main character, progressing through all this stuff, and that itself is the story. I don't know if that's good or bad. That's kind of just a sign of the time. But much of this works.
They probably just didn't have the space in the cartridge for more cutscenes.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. I'm sure that wasn't a conscious choice. It was just, here's what we have. So for me, I was shocked at how difficult it was, how much it held up, and how much fun I had playing it. Like I finished it like a week ago, and I miss it already. Like I keep wanting to be like, I want to keep firing this up. And
I honestly might play it again after we finish here.
It's had a long life as in the speed running community too. There are people who can finish this game in about 9 minutes. That's
how many?
9 minutes.
9?
Jesus. Yeah, it's a whole other kind of.
Fuck do they do
community.
that?
They use different techniques to kind of glitch through it. But
wow.
That's where, you know, the majority of people probably know it now if they didn't play it when it came out. Is you know, as this example of something that's held up as one of the greatest games of all time, and from speed running. So I think it's amazing. I think it holds up. It's from the August 2001 edition of Game Informer. Of the top 100 games of all time, it came in at number 11, in front of Super Mario 64 and behind Final Fantasy 7.
Wow. What was
number
one?
The Legend of Zelda for NES was number 1.
Oh, okay. There you go.
But to me, I mean, there's a lot of, if you just look at the Wikipedia, you know, this game is often described as like flawless or perfect or really, you know, the best game ever. And I think that deserves to be reevaluated. I think at the time, nothing had been like this, but the controls, the camera, I mean, some of the shit, you have to do some precision jumping in here.
Oh yeah.
There's no dedicated jump button, and it is difficult to the point of just being hilarious. Cause like you just put Link towards an edge and he just gleefully leaps to his death. Which would be unacceptable, I think, nowadays. So some of that stuff is super dated. But the stuff that holds up really holds up. What did you think, Oz?
The way that I kind of thought about it, it's like watching Citizen Kane in film school. Like it's considered to be, you know, the best film ever made, but then all the stuff that made it great originally is so, you know, it's so overdone now that you watch it and you're like, well, this isn't anything special. So I completely agree. Like that calling it a flawless game is, you know, probably needs to be reevaluated, but I think it definitely holds up. Like, no, it's not going to look as good as, you know, Red Dead Redemption or whatever other game's going to come out next year or has come out in the last 10 years. But I think that's, you know, that's not the point. The point is like the experience of actually going through and solving the puzzles and defeating the bad guys. It's like I was playing the Super Nintendo Super Mario World, also on the 3DS. And I remember getting so frustrated because that was more of a challenge than the new game that I downloaded last week, the Marvel Avengers game. It's so easy and the gameplay is so clunky and bad that it's not worth the $60. Whereas, you know, the $10 I spent, you know, when I first got the Super Mario game is way more worth it, just because the gameplay is much better. So I think that's really what the legacy is going to be, is how good the game actually is, not how good it looks.
And I played Breath of the Wild and I loved it. And I thought it was amazing. It's huge. It is a great game. I think did you not like it? Didn't we text when it first came out?
We discussed it.
Yet again, we had a hard difference of opinion.
Yeah, I thought in terms of gameplay, it's really great. But the thing that I was disappointed in is that most Zelda games in the franchise, there's this new kind of feature that you see that kind of pushes the envelope of what the entire industry can do. Not necessarily in hardware or graphics, but just this new kind of experience. And so the original Zelda was one of the first role-playing games where you had to be better at the end of the game than you were at the beginning. And that was the really big selling point of it. And that, you know, that was the same thing was true in the latest Zelda game, but just seemed like they took a lot of elements from other games from the past 5 years, put it, you know, kind of shoehorned everything in, and just put, you know, a Zelda logo on it. And it's like, oh, here's this new game. So it's new for the Zelda franchise, but it wasn't necessarily new for games in general.
I think it's a good, valid criticism. I mean, I loved it. I don't know. I think I was probably had to have been over 75 hours into that one.
Oh yeah, all the little temples and
but it's easy. I mean, it's huge, but it's really easy. I never got stuck in Breath of the Wild. Yeah, it's kind of obvious what you have to do, and I think it's cool. I liked it. I thought it was amazing. I can't wait to play that one again in 10 years time once I've gotten some space from it. But it is nowhere near as hard as this, and it does not push the envelope so much as it's just a great game to play.
It's a solid, fun game.
Yeah.
But it's not. I don't think it's going to be on anybody's, you know, top 10 list 10 years from now.
I don't think so either.
I think you both pretty much said it, but is it still good for both of you guys?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it is. It's different than I remember. I think it's fairly remembered for being great. I don't think anyone would play it and be disappointed. I think, you know, if you played it back in the day, you'll be real surprised at how much of this holds up. I would expect if someone had never played it and they get into it now, you're going to, like you said, Oz, like you're going to take a lot of the stuff for granted that this game kind of either did first or popularized. You know, being able to set your own controls to whatever, you know, button for different items, the open world, lots of interesting, you know, NPCs and side quests in the world that kind of seems lived in, and different elements like time travel and shit like that. So I don't know. I think people would have a hard time with it. I think it's shockingly difficult, but there's nothing wrong with, you know, making money the old fashioned way by chopping down plants and breaking pots left and right for those sweet rupees. Yeah, baby, get them. And, you know,
one green rupee at a time.
Oh, just stack them up. And I never understood why there was a limit of 99 rupees to your purse. You could get you get more. Yeah.
But it's just, I just hated it. It's like, this is not needed. Just let me do whatever I want.
My favorite shit, like there's little things that I don't think would fly today. Like there's one trap that comes up every once in a while where there's a treasure chest, and if you open it, it just freezes you and you just lose health for no reason. Yeah. And every time that happened, I couldn't stop laughing because it's so funny. It's like so mean spirited. And then when you finally get to the last guy, when you get to Ganondorf in the evil castle, you come up on him and he's playing an evil organ. Just amazing. He's just rocking out when you sneak up on him, and it's perfect for like just the most arch bad guy. I love that shit. And as we texted before too, the fairies. I remember the fairies getting my dick juices working a little more than they did now. So less for a horny older man than there was for a horny 11-year-old.
I gotta say that the fairies in Breath of the Wild, they did look good.
They're more voluptuous. But we're the generation that grew up just thinking that one of these days we'll get to see beneath Lara Croft's bikini, because there's nothing worse than just being a horny preteen.
Oh yeah, her pyramid shaped boobs were just the best.
Unbelievable. So look how far we've come.
Right.
But yes, good. Carter, this is an experience you'll never have, but I don't think you wouldn't like it.
I don't know. I have a pretty short attention span, and I feel like I give up pretty quickly.
If you frustrate easily, then this is not the game for you. It's definitely one where like you have to put in time, but it pays off. So
yeah, I'm not willing to do that for this.
Right.
I know myself, and it's just no, not gonna happen. I'll put my time in for other things, but not this. I just won't do it.
It's just it's fair, but
yeah, it's just might as well be honest.
I don't want to spoil the ending, but I will. He does stop the bad guy, and then you get a montage of all the characters over the credits, and then I sent you guys
cool.
the freeze frame.
Yeah,
that's another thing. Yeah, you don't even. I just realized you probably don't even get to see the credits until you beat it.
Oh, absolutely not. No, that's
not
like
a movie,
that's your reward. Yeah, that's your reward.
And then you don't ever press A to fast forward through the credits, because there's often like some little Marvel-esque kind of thing at the very end where you don't
a little Easter egg. Imagine being a developer or someone who worked on that game, and just like all you want is for people to see your name, and then they just never do because the game's too hard to beat. Like, how's anybody ever going to know that I worked on this?
Well, imagine like the best boy or the grip who tells his like aunt in like Poughkeepsie, like, oh yeah, I'm definitely in your. Wait till the end where you see my name. And it flashes by, and that's it.
Oh boy. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. You can find us at stillgoodshow.com, stillgoodshow@gmail if you want to send us an email. You can find us on Instagram at stillgoodshow. We want to thank Adzio Czerski for coming on and for enlightening us in the ways of Zelda, enlightening me, frankly, because I didn't know shit, and those headphones are fucking serious business.
Oh yeah.
And we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye.